Okay, so hopefully you've got those closed voiced triads under your fingers. Now we're going to move on to open voiced triads. These are absolutely lovely chord voicings, and they conjure up sort of images of players like Eric Johnson plays these chord voicings all the time. Guys like Carl Verheyen play these all the time. They're just very, very guitaristic voicings. Unlike the last voicings, which had that kind of piano or string arrangement sound to them, these are more unique to our instrument because they include some pretty wide intervallic stretches in them that are physically more demanding to play on an instrument like the piano. So what is an open voiced triad? Well, if you remember back to our last chapter where we talked about closed voiced triads, I asked you to sort of conjure up that image of a clock. And around your clock, you've got the notes C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, you know, infinitely or however. And if you pick any three adjacent notes, you have a closed voice triad because your notes are always next to each other in the series of root, third, fifth. An open voice triad is not that. An open voice triad would be where you would take three random notes from the clock and they wouldn't necessarily be sat next to its adjacent note. So to be clear, they have to be three different notes. It has to be C, E and G. You can't pick C, E and C. It has to be three different notes, C, E and G, but they are not sat next to each other in order. So you might have, instead of C, E, G, you might have C, G, so you've skipped out the E, C, G, and then an E on top. That'd be an open voiced triad. Let me just sort of play one for you so you can instantly hear the difference, and you will instantly hear the difference. So this would be a closed voice triad. And this would be an open voice triad. Another open voice triad. Versus its closed voice counterpart. And the open voiced triad. Or open voice triads you could play. That's a very rich sounding chord voicing, right? Compared to its closed counterpart, which would be closed voice triad, open voice triad. You hear Eric Johnson play voices like this all the time. That's super Eric Johnson in sound, right? Yeah, very Eric Johnson in nature. So how are we going to learn these? We have to have a system, right? We can't just say pick three random notes, C, E and G in random places on the neck, because then, you know, you've got endless options. Again, we're going to sort of fit it around the cage system in the same way that we did when we played. But this time we're going to start in the lowest position of the chord. So we're going to put the fifth on the bottom. Then I've got the third played on the D string. So that's the second fret on the D string. The third in the chord, the E note. And then I'm going to put my my C at the fifth fret on the G string. So that would be 3, skip a string, 2, 5. Now things can get real messy with these chords real fast because you can essentially finger them in various different ways. G, E, C. I could also move that E note onto the A string and then I would have two different ways to finger the same chord. I find this one easier. I have friends that prefer that voicing. Same 3 notes though. I'm going to recommend this one for the simple reason that it fits around that chord quite nicely. If you can see this chord, then you can play Let's just talk briefly again about the technique I'm using to play these. I'm using hybrid picking fan here. So I'm picking the low note with the pick and then using my middle and ring fingers on the D and G string respectively to pluck them at the same time. A pinching motion, if you will. And it's nice because it allows you to play them at the same time simultaneously. Or you could bounce between the two. It's been moving through the inversions, we'll get to those though. So there's our first chord. And when I do that, I've got the fifth in the bass, the G. My next chord will have the root in the bass, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, you know, going through that pattern again. So we actually have this chord voicing. So note-wise, I'm playing the C at the third fret on the A string, 5 on the D, and then 5 on the B string. So we're skipping out the G string. Now this is where things get technically quite demanding on the hands. You've got a couple of options. You could strum the chord, as I've mentioned previously. When you do that though, you need to make sure that you're not playing the open G string. I'm muting it with the fleshy side of my third finger. Or you could play hybrid picking using the pick, the middle and the ring. I find that quite uncomfortable though, because I'm forced to create a gap between my second and third fingers. What I prefer to do, and I know I'm in a minority when I do this, is to pick with the pick, the middle and the little finger. You can see there, if you look closely at my picking hand, I'm playing that note on the B string with my little finger. That's just a sort of exercise that I've practiced for a long time, just getting comfortable with it, or a technique I should say. Just practicing pinching those notes. Or you could arpeggiate. You're really working on little finger independence. Subject for a whole different DVD there on hybrid picking. We're not worrying about that right now. So however you choose to play those 3 notes, all that matters is you're playing those 3 notes. And then our last open voice triad in this position, around this shape, would be nice sounding voicing. Second fret on the D string, 5 on the G, and then 3 on the high E. Nice sounding. So it's important to know that when I'm visualizing each of those, they fit around that A bar shape. So when I visualize that anywhere on the neck, I've still got those open voice triads instantly under my fingers. I don't have to play this game that a lot of my students have insisted that they want to do because they consider it to be the best way to learn. You know, a year later they're still struggling to play these chords. What they're doing is they're sort of playing these open voice triads, and they're learning that this is the third, this is the root, this note is the fifth. And then they're saying, okay, so I'm here on the neck, I need to play an F major open voice triad. Where's my F? Well, there's an F here. So when I play that note, what does my open voice triad look like? Hopefully you can appreciate that you're going through a lot of steps in order to do that. That's no good for us as a on-the-spot session musician or a working musician. We need to be able to boom, 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 there's the chord, there's the chord. Hopefully, if you're here on the neck and I ask you to play me an F major chord, no hesitation, you know that chord. When you can visualize that, you've got your open voice triads. stays there under that chord shape. And that's really the secret to being able to apply any of these chords on the fly. So those are the chords around our A shape. Let's move these up and see how they fit around the G shape. And they do fit around the G shape. This is where things get rather annoying, because we've got open voice triads. There's just so many possible ways to finger them. I could play around the G shape. I want to play my open voice triads. I've got this new shape where I'm playing the 8th fret on the low E string. And I should point out, I hate these shapes. Physically, they're quite demanding on you because we're skipping out the A string and skipping out the G string. So that's 8 on the low E, 5 on the D, then 5 on the B. So I'm needing to use my little finger there again. That's just how I like it on the picking hand. Totally up to you how you do that. Now those are the same notes as this. I never said this encyclopedia was going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of, not repetition, but variation on how you can play these, or possible ways you can play them on the neck. So that's our first shape. Don't forget to refer to the tab if you're getting lost. Then we have this. I like this shape. Physically it's quite easy to play. We've got a 7th fret on the A string, 5 on the G, and then 8 on the B. Practice going between the two. Nice physical exercise on the picking hand. And when I'm doing that, I'm fully aware of the fact that it fits around this G shape. And then our final shape, I'm just barring with the first finger on the 5th fret, playing the 8th fret on the high E string, and then actually picking the D, B and high E strings. So we've got, what would that be, 6 open voice triads so far. 6 ways of playing a C major chord in open voicings. Things get really silly from here. We can just sort of keep going through each one of the cage shapes. And I've presented, all of your options in the tab book, but I'll just sort of play you through my way of getting through these. So when I move up from the G shape to the E shape, I like to play through it like this. So that would be 8, 10, 9 on the E, A and G strings. So skipping out of the D string there. Then we've got 7, 10 and 8 on the A, D and B strings, skipping the G. Now some people don't like to play that chord like this. Some people prefer to play, which would be 8, 5 and 9 on the E, D and G strings. Lots of numbers, lots of letters, it's real confusing. It's very important that you refer to the tab on this, because you don't want to get lost. And always, always, always try and relate them back to a bigger chord form. A chord voicing like this, it's absolutely no use to you if you move it around the neck and I play it. Here, for example, I need you to know that when you play that, you're playing an A major chord. Why are you playing an A major chord? Because these 3 notes come from this. And you know this is an A major chord. So there's your secret to memorising these. So back to the fingerings of these chords. Our next one, again, we've got skips 10, 9 and 8 on the A, G and high E strings. Sometimes I'll finger that one like this. It's just kind of like the bright edge that you get from that high E string. B string's a little bit flat. Very pretty sounding. So and our final voicing in this position, lovely sounding chord, and that would be 10 on the D, 8 on the B, and 12 on the high E. Now that in itself is a nice valuable exercise to practice through. You could move down obviously. So what have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With variations, we've been able to play like this or like this. You know, we're really starting to get into some big numbers here. Let's take a look at the next position and get a few more under our fingers. That looks a little something like this. So more of the same essentially. We've got, you know, nice sounding voicings. That's what you get when you play open voice triads, and they sound, you know, like Eric Johnson. But this time I'm visualizing around my D major chord. D major shape, I should say. So the chords that I'm actually playing would be 10, 12, 12 on the D, G and high E strings. Then we've got the chord that we looked at previously, 10, 9, 13 on the A, G and B strings. And then this one on the bottom, 12, 10, 12 on the low E, D and G strings. Nice and simple, but pretty sounding. Let's just finish this off by looking at the final position, the C shape, where our chords are going to sound like this. More of the same, fingering wise, let's take a look at some of those voicings. I really like this one, I love the way this one sounds, although we've technically played this voicing before, not with this fingering. It would be 14, 13, 15 on the D, B and high E string. I like the way that sounds. And then we've got 15, 12, 12 on the A, G and high E. And then 15, 14, 13 on the low E, the D and the B. That's really the way to practice these, just go through them. So it's cold. I'm not really thinking about them as I'm doing them anymore. I've played these so many times that I can talk to you as I'm doing them. So that would be all of the conveniently fingered open voice triads in C major. And these sound really, really nice. Let me just play a nice little musical example for you of these, just outlining a C major, F major and G major chord. It will sound a little something like this. Nice little musical example. I've transcribed that for you so you can take a look at it in your own time. You can essentially play, you know, through any chord progression using these open voice triads, and they sound totally different to if I was going to play that same chord sound, but that's one sound. You know, if you're playing with another guitar player, by all means have them play that. But having the option as the second guitar player to play some of those open voice triads, they can really sort of set yourself apart in terms of part writing. You could alternate pick through them. You don't have to play them as chords. You can arpeggiate through them. They sound lovely. The same thing if I arpeggiate. Sounds quite musical when arpeggiated like that, especially if you're playing on a track with lots of other instruments. Maybe not like that on your own, but having the power and the chord knowledge to be able to play that, you know, and spruce up an arrangement is just that. It is a power. It is something that will set you apart with other guitar players. It makes you stand out from the crowd a little bit. So there is those chord voicings. Let's take a look at some more chord voicings in the next chapter. I'll see you there.